Korean players are notorious for their insanely long practice hours, and many Western players and teams have tried to copy these schedules, but in most cases, it leads to them burning out. So what are Western players doing wrong? Are they just not as physically or mentally strong? To look at this, we first have to talk about what burnout is and what causes it. Burnout is defined as the state where you're emotionally and physically and mentally exhausted. Most people think that burnout is caused by long work hours, but that's actually not the only reason. I remember in 2016 TSM, we were the first Western team to triple block, and we managed to make it through the entire season. Whereas there were other years on TSM where I feel like the roster couldn't even make it through 2 blocks without being completely exhausted week after week. So what's the real reason? I would actually argue that burnout is actually caused by a mismatch between people in their work environment. Imagine if you're a player who is expected to win or do really well, but you don't have the proper resources or given in the right direction. Maybe you have a lack of control, or you're held accountable for something without having the power. Like if you're a jungler who can't get the mid laner to see the game the right way and your coach really isn't helping. You are coming in every day into an environment where you feel like the things that you want to do or the things that you want to try aren't being valued, and that just causes more stress than the actual work you're putting in. Maybe it's because you don't have the right community, maybe you feel isolated, or maybe your team just has a lot of conflict. Maybe there's an issue with fairness. You feel that there's some players or staff who are behaving in ways that don't agree with your values. In my experience, on average, the more of these mismatches that exist, the more mental effort it takes for you to be present at work. And on average, I also think that these mismatches in a work environment exist far more for players and staff on Western teams than Eastern teams. So what do teams or players do when they also start to show signs of burnout? They're also asked to push through it and show grit. So imagine a player isn't doing well in practice. They'll usually play more solo queue and stay up at night. But then with less sleep, they'll show up for the next day of practice, perform even worse. Then they'll play more solo queue, get less sleep, and then it'll just leads to a spiral. And that's probably one of the most common causes of burnout. It's when people are asked to push through it. This is what everyone needs to understand. People don't burn out because they're weak. It's actually because they've tried to be strong and push through a course of stress that's just gone unaddressed for too long. And then their brains and bodies have gone on strike. I'd argue that the amount of players can work is determined by 2 things. 1, the value they're gaining from the work they're putting in, and 2, the resources they're being provided. If Western teams want to have any hope of fixing their problems, they need to address these 2 things before they can ask their players to train harder.